Here we go. Let's get into some rock and roll. Hope you guys are ready to rock your faces off. Today I'm going to break down a rock track that I mixed and mastered. All I know is the producer of Marcy's Playground, Sex and Candy and all that stuff, reached out to me and was like, hey, man, you want to mix a record for me? And I'm like, yeah, cool. So I've been working with him for a while. His name is Jared Kotler. Super talented producer. Obviously, that was a huge success, that song. I got sex and candy here. I don't know if you remember that song. I think it was like maybe late 90s, early 2000s. But a really big hit, smash hit, multi-platinum. And he's a really dope producer. He works with a ton of really talented musicians. So it was really cool to get into this session. But I want to show you guys some rock stuff because I'm tired of showing you guys trap mixes and R&B and stuff. I mean, honestly, like I mix a ton of different genres. I mix orchestral, funk, jazz, blues, Portuguese, Brazilian funk, rock and roll. Let's get into it. I love rock and roll. I love guitars. I came up on hardcore, punk rock, metal, all sorts of rock genres. Alternative rock. Nirvana really got me into music. Pearl Jam, all those guys. Garage rock days. Everclear, if anyone's familiar. So, what's up, Philip? What's up, Chase the Connect? Robert, what's up? Philip Banks, always in the house. Beat Gang member over here. If you are interested in music business, music industry, mix master tips, production tips, all that stuff, then subscribe to the channel right now. So let's get right into this mix. Saturdays, I'm going to keep doing these. I'm going to break down these different mixes and masters, productions that I've done. I'm going to show you guys the inner workings of my sessions. And something really exciting coming along. I am working on something for all you Pro Tools users. Track preset channel strips using stock plugins and third-party plugins, chains from G-Eazy Records that I've worked on, as well as a ton of different stuff. I mean, honestly, it's insane, but I'm going to get to that. I'm going to have that offer out there and get you guys all the good stuff. So I'm going to go to the desktop here and let's get into the session. So the first thing about rock tracks that's very different is all the instruments are live, right? So that's a big part of it. With trap records, you got a lot of sample drums, sample kicks, sample snares, hi-hats, etc. With rock, it's all played live. And typically, I might, replace the drums or I'll sweeten them up with stacks of drum samples using like Slate Digital Trigger 3, stuff like that. But this one, I didn't really want to do that. I thought it would sound a lot cooler, just, being kind of on its own, raw, feeling rock and raw. So let's get right into it. I'm going to play it. I got the master chain, got my instruments, got all my buses set up. And you can see it's not that crazy of a mix. A lot of guitars. So I'll show you kind of how I arrange these guitars and stuff because that's really important. But if you guys have any questions along the way, just hit me with them on the comments. I'm going to play from the beginning here and show you guys kind of through the first chorus here. You've got the world, you've got the lights shining down on you, king of the night. I push my ass off for a better life. You ain't one ounce what I got, now I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's Pretty cool song, right? It's got a lot of edge. It feels, yeah, it's fun, man. It's got a cool vibe to it. I really enjoyed mixing this one. And obviously the players are outstanding. The arrangement's outstanding. These guys are legends. Everyone that played on this, these guys have played on records that you know and love and probably grew up on. The bass player, the drummer, the guitar player, all these guys. Big time legend rock guys, all right? So gotta respect the craft, always. So I'm gonna get right into kind of, I guess, the idea behind the song. For me, I wanted it to feel really gelled, really glued together, really but still in your face and still aggressive. But I wanted to sound really radio, right? I didn't want this to sound old school at all. I wanted it to sound really modern, loud, but like glued. So like that was a really big part of it. Glad you guys like it. If you do love it, show some thumbs up, some love. That'd be awesome. And comment on the video. It always helps us with the algorithm. Like the video, all that stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to get right into the techniques. Basically, when I start a rock record, or any record really, I'll typically start with the rhythm section, right? So I'm going to start with the drums, because that's the foundation of every track, the drums and the bass. I really don't know very many styles that aren't like that, unless you're mixing like orchestral and things like that. But even then, I start with the low end, right? So I want to find a foundation. I want to find a good foundation to put everything on. And this track relied on a lot of parallel processing. And if you're in mixing and you're a mixing engineer and you're mixing radio stuff or stuff with big artists on it or whatever, you're always using a ton of parallel processing. And parallel processing is what makes your records sound thick. It's what makes them sound full and glued together. This one really needed like this cohesive, fat, full, but in your face. The vocals were so important, and they needed to sound nice and dry and just rock and roll. Everything kind of needed to sound really just kind of raw in a sense, without it sounding like trashy, because everything was really tight, especially the playing. So the first thing I really started with was getting all my my parallel processing buses together. Okay, so like I have a vocal parallel comp, which I use the 33609 on. The 33609, this Neve compressor, is a stereo compressor. It's used a lot on buses. It's used a lot on parallel, but it's also used on mastering, right? So like the master bus, the 2 bus. I really like this for pushing the mids forward. I'll show you the vocal kind of with and without it, and just like hear how the vocal kind of pops forward in the mids when you turn it on. I think this was like a very important aspect of the vocal. So I'll play this for you. You've got the lights shining down on you, king of the night. I push my ass off for a better life. You ain't one ounce what I got. No, I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want to shine it tight on. So really important part of this vocal is like it almost like thickens it out a little bit, but it also just like pushes it forward. It's like in your face now, right? So parallel processing, vocal compression, parallel compression on that. I didn't want to put it on the vocal because I felt like it would start to smash it a little bit. And then you'll notice that this goes the all Vox bus. And the all Vox bus means it's not getting into the vocal mix bus, because the vocal mix bus for me is where I start to use compression as well, right? So here's the vocal mix bus. I'll throw the lead to this, but the parallel idea, obviously you don't want that to be going to the compressor as well. Or maybe you do, sometimes you do. You break the rules, you do whatever you want to do, but first learn the fundamentals, right? So this vocal mix bus here is giving me a little FG gray, which is basically an SSL comp, bus comp. And typically I'm paralleling this, I'll mix it in. But as I just showed you, I'm already doing a parallel vocal compression with that 33609. So there you go, and then that goes to the all Vox, and then the all Vox goes to the master augs. And then, I've showed my routing a lot of times in all these videos, but I like to kind of reiterate just so you guys really pound this in. I want you to like take something from this. I want you to learn my techniques and use them, utilize them, and just get better at mixing all the way around. But it has a lot to do with arrangement, right? It has a lot to do with understanding compressors, understanding tonality of compressors. So these compressors all sound different. The EQs all sound different. Sometimes I'm just doing very light stuff with them. So the FG mu obviously is a variable mu. It's a Manley variable mu compressor. That's what it's modeled after. But the reason I like the Slate one is because I have a few little options that just sound better to me for mastering, right? They are kind of noisy, just something to keep in mind. The Slate stuff, it kind of adds some noise, and there's no like off. You can't turn the noise off on the Slate stuff. But I do want you guys to understand like the differences, right? So with this FG mu, this is really like giving me glue. It's pushing things a little bit forward in the mids, but then I'm typically high pass filter on the actual compressor circuitry, right? So the compressor detector, it's still going through the compressor, but it's not detecting anything below 144. Okay, so everything 144 and above is getting detected by the compressor circuit and then being compressed. But I'll show you just how lightly this is doing. It barely is touching. It's not doing much.
You've got the lights shining down on you, king of the night. I bust my ass off for a better life. You ain't one ounce what I got. Now I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want to shine at the title. I want the rips and bows. I want to shine at the title.
So super important to understand that the compressor is not just compressing, okay? And as you're getting, and maybe you haven't been mixing for, 15, 16, 17 years like me, and that's okay. But you got to understand what is going on behind the hood, like under the hood, right? There's a bunch of variable mu means tubes. They're tubes, right? The tubes are going to give saturation. They're going to softly saturate, and they're going to add harmonics to the fundamentals, right? So what that's doing is it's pushing the mids forward. It's pushing the high end. It's distorting, but it's adding color, and it's making things jump out because your ear perceives that stuff, right? So that's how you get something to kind of jump out of the speakers. It gets more exciting, You don't need to use EQ all the time. You don't need to get on an EQ and start, turning up 2K because you want it to cut more. You can put a variable mu compressor on there. You can put saturators on there. You can put exciters on there, right? Tape, tubes, transistors, transformers. There's all sorts of stuff that gives you color and gives you saturation, that gives you harmonics. Okay, so that's variable mu. And then that goes into the FG mu, the Brainworks V3. So this is an EQ. It's in mid-side mode. I usually EQ the middle, different than I EQ the sides. And then I do a little bit of stereo widening, and you could see I made up for some gain that was happening. So turn that down 9.2. And then here on the sides, you can see I'm really pushing the mids. That just gives it thickness, right? So for me, 1.2 kind of thickened it up, but then also I have this one. So I'm like literally pushing a bunch of 1K in. That makes my record sound a little louder. It also kept the vocal kind of like feeling present and in your face. Helps the guitars as well. But that's not for every record. Every record's different, obviously. Hopefully you guys understand that. Every record you're going to treat different. You're going to compress different. You're going to EQ different. So these are just like, things that I found about this record. So here we got, again, I'm going into the Slate Digital, which is the red. This is off the Focusrite red. This drive here, this is really important to this. It's going to push it forward with the mids again. So I'm going to show you that, A/B it.
You've got the lights shining down on you, king of the night. I bust my ass off for a better life. You ain't one ounce what I got. Now I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want to shine at the title. I want the rips and
Now, hopefully you guys are understanding the compounding effect of these different compressors and the tubes and the distortion algorithms and the transistors and the transformers. So that's the variable, that's the FG red, which is giving me some distortion. I'm not really sure how that distorts. It may be like a VCA compressor with like a big transformer on the output or something. I'm not really sure. I'd have to read up about that, but I just love the color of it. Kind of makes things stand up in attention. And then here I'm just literally straight up giving more distortion. So this is the middle, this is the sides. Got a question here from Philip. Do you think mid-side EQing makes the mix wider? Absolutely, 100%. Anything to get width and depth out of the mix, and if you don't have, I would recommend never use mid-side if you don't have a proper listening environment, or you don't, you're not like, your ears aren't trained to the point to even use mid-side, because you can screw up a record so quickly. You can collapse the center. You can make the sides louder than the center. You can cause all sorts of weird phasing issues. So if you are not a like seasoned, mixing engineer, mastering engineer, listened on, great quality monitors in a tuned room or great headphones, and you really know your stuff, I wouldn't even touch mid-side processing. You'll just screw up your record. Just don't do it. Yeah, you gotta really ear train and understand this stuff. It's not just about me showing you like how this stuff works. It's you understanding what it sounds like and learning it. It's just like working out. You build the muscle, you keep going. You got a bodybuilder that's like massive and he's like 350 and he's all muscle. And then you're like, why can't I get like that? Well, he's on steroids. No, it's not that. He's got technique. He's got years of experience. It's his nutrition. It's learning. It's muscle, mind-muscle connection, all that stuff. That's the same thing with mixing records. It's the same thing with mastering, production, composing. You want to find that muscular. It's all about just doing it a lot, right? And listening on different environments. Get in studios, pay for a studio, pay for this stuff. You guys really, if you want to be good at this stuff, you got to pay. You got to pay to play. And it's an expensive hobby or profession to get into, right? So this is doing more distortion. Hopefully that answers your question, Philip. This does more distortion on the mids and sides. So I like mid-side processing because I got the monitoring and I got the ears down and the room and everything where I know how to, move things up, down, sideways, deeper, more in front of me, all that stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. Typically I'm going low in the middle and I'm going high mids on the sides. Okay. So these are FET Crusher and Zener Blend. Again, we're talking literally about tubes, right? Tubes and transistors. All right, and then Oxford Inflator. This is kind of an exciter slash limiter slash crazy stuff. Beautiful, sounds awesome. Gives me more level, gives me more of that mid spank. I got the effect at 95.5. That's very, very rare that I would do that. With a rock record, I find that this sounds really good. Sometimes if you bring this knob up, it'll push your mix up, meaning like it'll push your vocal up. And I don't want that. I want to keep it kind of centered, but I kind of mixed into this stuff, so it makes sense. The curve up a little bit, that's going to give me some more thickness and low end. EQ P1A, love the Pultec, obviously, most people do. At 30, I find if I boost and I cut, I really like that curve. It's going to give me some of the sub frequencies, but it's also like a really nice like thickening that doesn't get muddy. I mean, you really got to crank this to get it muddy. If you go to 100, you can get muddy really easily. If you go to 30 and you boost and attenuate, you shift the curve, and it kind of just gives you a nice roundness and fatness down at the bottom. Use it a lot on hip-hop records, trap records, R&B, rock records. I mean, everything. This is a beautiful EQ. It's all tube-based. It's very, very, very transparent. Just gorgeous, especially the top end. So bandwidth, I keep it pretty broad. I'm doing a little 12K top boost and a little bit of attenuating. And attenuating and boosting actually just shifts the curve, just so you understand what that is. I'm not like turning it up and then turning it back down. That's not how a Pultec works. That's why a Pultec's so cool, is because you can do that with it. Okay, and then Ozone 8 is what I used on this record. You can see I have a little EQing to push that mid here, push that 2, and then I'm pushing a little top on top, and then dynamic EQ kind of controlling that punchy 151 area. which will take up a lot of voltage. Anything down here would take up a lot of voltage when it hits your limiter. Okay, so I'm trying to control that before it hits the limiter. This record wasn't especially loud, but it was very like glued and cohesive, and it felt loud. And I think it translates really well to streaming. So if you put this on Spotify, you put this on Apple, it's going to translate perfectly. It's just going to sound good. You're not crushing the LUFs. You're not going nuts with the mastering. You're just making it feel loud. And there's a big difference between actual loud records, like reading them on a scope or LUF meter, and records that just sound great on streaming because they're still big. You know, like some people smash records super hard all the way to the wall, soft clip them, and then they go on Spotify or Apple Music, and what they do is they have algorithms that turn them down, and they turn the other ones up that are quieter, so everything's even. Well, the ones that are really, really loud and mastered to destruction get turned down, and they actually sound a lot smaller that way. So be careful who you're working with when it comes to mastering. If it's your homie, and he's saying, yeah, I'll throw the master in as well, he's just smashing your shit. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm not saying everybody doesn't know what they're doing, but I'm saying like a majority of people that are doing like, hey, yeah, I'll do a master for you, bro, for $50, $100. Nah. Or they're using Lander, or they're uploading it to the internet and then going, yeah, that's cool. Whatever the AI says, right? So really important for me to be able to mix into my master, so I can make tweaks to individual buses and get more level and decide what I need to tweak to get more voltage or less voltage wherever, right? So hopefully that all makes sense. If you guys have any questions, hit me. If you're liking this so far and this is helping, please just smash the like button on the video. It would mean the world to me, and it helps with the algorithm. So really appreciate it. All right, so the drum mix bus, I love the API 2500. It glues, it's fat, it's punchy, it's beautiful, okay? So that's what my drums are doing. They're getting glued there at that drum mix bus. The vocal mix bus, I already showed you this. Sometimes I'm blending that in, but instead we use the parallel stuff. And then on this one, I used a Fatso, which is actually one of the first compressors I ever owned like a hardware unit of. And it's an incredible unit. I never had a Fatso Senior. I didn't even know that these actually existed. I think this is just a plug-in, or maybe they do have the hardware unit. But I just had the one rack Fatso. Fatso Junior, I think was what it's called. This has a tranny in it, right? So transformer. You can drive the output transformer. This thing's incredible. Very colorful, tape saturation. It emulates tape saturation, tube saturation, all sorts of stuff. I'll just kind of show you what it sounds like on this all instruments, and so you can kind of get an idea. Thickens stuff like crazy.
You probably never make it through that door. It's just your luck you made it this far. Well, let me bleed, let me fight.
So I actually use the Fatso really subtly on this one, which is not, it's very rare that I use it subtly. Usually I'm like smashing a Fatso because it just like has such a great saturation effect. They actually call it a, it's like a low-end limiter or something, right? So you can use this to low-end limit. So if you turn the warmth up, you're basically, what you're doing is you're pushing into the compression or the saturation, but you're like dipping down the high end. So you're pushing just the low end into it, and that's why it's warm, right? So you can go like, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you go to 7, you're really like limiting the low end, right? So I almost look at it as like a multi-band compressor, where it's like, okay, I don't want any of that high end getting compressed, but I want to compress the crap out of the low end, right? So that's what that is. That's just a low end limiter. So yeah, it definitely glues, it thickens. It's really dope. Do you just do rock tracks or other tracks as well? Oh man, I do everything. And if you go back on the video in the beginning, you'll understand what I'm doing. I'm actually doing a rock track. I'm showing you a rock track because, I haven't actually showed a rock track in so long. It's been trap records, it's been R&B, it's been hip hop and all that. So pop records. I do orchestral, I do every genre, mixing. I mean, anything in music, it's what I do. Been doing music for most of my life, for the majority now. I can hear the glue. Yeah, it's very subtle. It's glue. It kind of like makes things louder, but it also like gives you a little bit more fatness, right? So hence the fatso. Big old fatty boy. All right, so another thing, really big thing in this mix is you can see every single send on the all mixes are going to a rear bus. This is outstandingly important to this record. And to a lot of records, if you want to make things louder, you got to do parallel, right? Parallel processing. I'm paralleling the whole damn record. You feel me? So this rear bus, I'll show you what it is. I'm going to give you guys all the sauce. I actually got this from a big engineer. I forget his name. Dude with the beard, big-ass beard, long-ass hair, wears glasses. Legendary rock mixer. But not Ross Hogarth. I'm trying to think of his name, but Sheps. Shopes? Andy Shopes? Sheps? Yeah, Sheps, something like that. I think his name is Sheps. But anyway, he does the rear bus. I think a lot of engineers do this. I think it's really important when you need something to be full and pumping and pushing and you want more level, right? So every engineer is doing this stuff, right? So this is the rear bus, and I'll just show you this. This is going to be, you're going to be like, well, there you go. There's your whole mix. It's like, not necessarily. But I'll show you what it's doing. It's doing some heavy lifting. Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? Shit's going crazy. But Kaison, yeah, I actually, you can go back on the last one I did, the last in breaking down the mix, and it's of Young Reese's Deja Vu, which we produced, recorded, mixed, mastered, and that's a trap track. So, and it's really dope. I think you really like that one if you're into like, you know, trap. But different genres. I do all sorts of genres. Philip, yes, Andrew Sheps, good job. Yeah, that's the one. And he has a really great Neve plugin as well with waves. The Sheps 73. Or 1073, basically Sheps model. Yeah, the autocorrect just going nuts on you. So anyway, that's the rear bus is what I call it. But it's really like I'm paralleling the whole track, blending it in. You can see it's at -10. That's a really important part of this. I got a slap here. I got all sorts of stuff, all right? So the Fatso is doing kind of the same thing. It's kind of giving me more parallel compression here, and I'll show you that. I think I'm doing that with the guitars, but let's get into showing you the drums, because that's kind of like where I started with all of this. The kick drum, I typically will do drum replacement for rock records, and even hip-hop records, or jazz, or funk, or blues, or you know, anything that has live drums, I'll do some drum replacement. But it's usually to sort of like blend in, right? This one I didn't really want to do that because I felt like I wanted that raw drum sound, and it sounded cool and it sounded raw. It sounded like, you know, someone just slapping sticks in a smaller studio room, and I like that. So here's what I got on the kick in and out. I got an MDW, the Massenburg EQ, really clean. Used to use this all the time. I don't use it as much, but it's very clean. So I usually, nowadays I'm using more of the FabFilter Pro 3 just because I like the visual aspect of it. But this is a great EQ. Love it. So I'm pushing a little bit of that punch. And then I'm just bringing up the punch. I'm sweeping everything below 41. This is a great compressor. It's very fast. It's got 4 VCAs in it. It just slaps. It's really hard. You can get it to attack really hard and give you a really cool transient. So that's why I use it. Then the transient designer, it looks like I just took down a little bit of sustain on the kick drum. So that's all it was. And then I did 1% on the attack. So I pushed a little bit more of the you know, the beater basically. And then the 6050, I think this is a really cool plugin. It's from McDSP. I used a lot of McDSP stuff. This just has a gate on it. That's it. I'm not doing anything else with this, just using it for a gate. But you could use, there's a lot of cool stuff in this. You can use compressors, EQs, all sorts of stuff. And it's like a chain. You can, like a 500 series rack. All right. And then that is going to the All Drums P comp. Okay. So the All Drums P comp is going to be my parallel compression, right? So again, I'm using the API 2500 for rock, for hip hop, for anything that needs to be punchy, fat. This is what I use. I love it. It's amazing. API makes amazing stuff. UAD, the 2500 here from UAD is 10 times better than the Waves version. It's probably the best version out of the 2500. It's incredible. I've used the rack unit. I've used all the plug-in versions. This is the one. This is, if you're going to buy a 2500, get that one. All right. And wait for them to like put a sell on or give you a coupon or something, because I think it's like $300 just for the plug-in. Then you got to have the hardware as well, right? So that's that All Drums P comp goes to the All Drums bus. So kick out, I think I'm treating it a little differently. I'm going a little bit lower. I'm actually taking out a lot of that 393. I think it was probably kind of boxy. I mean, let's just listen to it. You know, let's hear what we were doing here, because it's been a while. This record I mixed years ago. So I'm just gonna play this and I'll show you kind of what I was thinking here.
You've got the world.
Yeah, you instantly hear like that papery like box sound. Like I just get rid of that. Like that shit sucks. Hate it. So I want that kick drum to be punchy. I want it to be full, fat, punchy. You know, hit you in the chest. I don't want it to sound like a boxy, like someone's hitting a cardboard box, right? So that's what I'm doing there. I'm taking out that. And then it looks like I'm boosting a little bit as well. Yeah, it's 69. So that's giving me some bottom. And then these kicks together give you a nice like punchy thing. You still got that snare in there, so I think that helps with it as well. Like dip out that 400 area. It helps get that snare, that like that paper bag sound. Hate it. So this is going to give me transients, transient designer again, doing that again. And this one I'm pushing really hard into the transients and no sustain. I'm not doing anything with that. And then I just have this on. I don't know, maybe I was going to use it for something, didn't use it. And then 6050 gate again. So that's it. Now, if I bypass these, just showing you the kick drum, I'll show you what it sounded like before I touched it, which I'd have to actually like mute all this with the kick bus and everything. So you can hear you got a lot of snare in there. So instead of like going in and manually cutting it out, I want it to still have a raw rock sound. Or maybe I was just being lazy, right? But this works great using a gate. Got rid of all the snares. It sounds much better. It's all punchy. And then when you get it in with like, I always think like my overheads are going to have low end in them as well as my rooms. So I'm going to use all of those things and I'm going to listen to all of those things before I make decisions on like, oh, I better get rid of this or that. Oh, look at that. I got the Shep 73 on there. Mr. Sheps himself. Bada bam. Shouts to Sheps. You're a rock legend. Killing it. All right, so that's the kick drum. But let's listen to the kick drum. Like, let's turn all these back on. And let's listen to the kick drum in the overheads as well, because that's really what you want to be doing when you're mixing rock records or any live kit at all, right? Super important that you're listening to kick drum with the other mics that are open in the room. Overhead mics, room mics, all that stuff. And of course, make sure they're all in phase, right? That's super important as well. So let's listen to the overheads with this. Let's see here. So go snare top, and then I got the kit. So here's a couple room mics. Let's just pop the overheads in with it. So yeah, that has a lot of aggression to it. So that's kind of what I was getting out of that. And I think I'd have to like, here, let me change my solo mode. So I think a lot of it has to do with like getting tones out of the rooms versus the overheads versus the actual kick drum. But this also kind of sounds a little phasey to me now, which, you know, I think it probably needed to be a little bit more aligned. But let's hear it now. Sorry, I got my mic unmuted. I'm going to play that again for you with the mic muted. So it really like has its own unique sound. They recorded it really well. It does sound like the overheads are a little bit out of phase, which I probably should have fixed that. But I think it has like that cool like clah, clah, clah. Like it has that sound in it that I think if I put it into phase, you wouldn't get that like that raw. Almost sounds like it's like hitting metal or something, you know? So it feels like a clink, which I think is really cool part of the track. But definitely pay attention to the phase, because maybe what I did is I tried it, you know, putting them in phase and seeing how it would sound, and then I lost the sound of the drums like that they were intending. I'm not really sure, but like I said, I mixed this years ago. But really important to you know, check out like, you know, if I'm gating that snare and that kick drum, you're gonna get the release and everything in the rooms, right? So you're gonna get all this here. Yeah, so like you can just hear like it's pretty phasey. I think there's probably a problem with my delay compensation, because it shouldn't sound like that. But you know, that's something to keep in mind when you hear the snares come in. You hear them kind of flamming as well. So I probably corrected the phase, and my phase compensation, like my delay compensation, is just not working right. So anyway, so that's kind of like the drum sound itself, but you got to remember, like I was going for a really punchy, attacky kind of thing, because the truth is there's not a whole lot of room for drums to be like massive in this, and they're fast. Like they need to be fast and attack. I gotta get that transient in there, right? That's all I'm worried about. So together, when you play it in the mix, it sounds incredible, right?
You've got the world, you've got the lights shining down on you, king of the night. I bust my ass off for a better life. You ain't got 1 ounce of what I got, now I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want to shine at the title, I want the rips and bows, I want to shine at the title.
Yeah, it must have been a creative thing that I was doing with the flamming, because that's just not right. It's either that they're not lined up, you know, like they're flamming because they're not lined up, or something happened with the session, or my delay compensation is just not working correctly. And that happens a lot with Pro Tools, but I think probably what I sent the client is, you know, not like that at all. So I'm going to have to double check that for sure, because he loved it and he was like, yeah, sounds great. And I don't think I would have sent it out with a flamming snare drum. So on the snares, speaking on this topic, I used the SSL, love the SSL console. I've used all the series. I've used G series, E series, 6000, 4000, yeah, a 9000J, 9000K. I've used all the consoles, pretty sure that SSL actually even makes. or that were relevant in any sense. So here I'm just I'm just pulling up this, filtering out everything below 86 on the snare. And then I think I'm probably, yeah, that's about it. I think I'm just doing a little bit of filtering. I don't think there's anything else here going on here. So there might be a little EQ, but I doubt it because this would be on, right? So no EQ. So SSL is great. Awesome filters, awesome, compressor, awesome EQs. Maserati stuff. Love this for snare. Think it's really cool, especially for like this thump and the snap, the schnibble snap. So I like that for snare. I don't usually use it on anything else. I think it's just on snares that I'll use this Maserati drums. So snare bottom and top, I'm doing that. The thump I left in the bottom. I left the snap on the top and the treble on the top, and have that on just, I guess, just in case. This snare snap bus, this is something I use a lot to give myself a little bit more transient. So you can see it's attacking really fast, but it kind of lets just that initial bam through, which is really great. It makes it really snappy. If you want a snare to snap, that's what you use right there. All right, and then of course we got the all drums parallel comp. You already saw that. When we go to the kick, you saw the kick. The kick bus goes to a 550B. I'm pushing a little bit of 2.5 to get you more of that beater, so you know where the drum is, the kick drum is, and then some 3K. So I'm really pushing that high mid stuff, right? Rather like, right in the mids. And then the 240 for punch, and then that's it. And I just make sure that I'm at a bell instead of a shelf there. And then it looks like L2007. This is an incredible limiter. I've been using this for, God, it must be like over a decade easily. I think probably about 11 to 15 years I've been using this actual limiter. And it's incredible. Like Massenburg, so good. Like I'll show you what it does for this kick bus. It's really good. Man, it's so good. It's like punchy. It's fat. It does level really well. Like it's a great limiter, and it's a mastering limiter. But I use it all the time on buses. Use it on like kick buses, drum buses, guitar buses, vocal buses. It's incredible. It works really well on 808 buses if you're mixing trap stuff. Yeah, and it's super cheap too. It's super affordable. All right, so there's that. That's the kick bus. The kick bus going to the drum mix. Also the kick parallel. And then the kick parallel, you saw API 2500. The hi-hats, it looks like I was probably just filtering out some stuff. Yeah, massive difference, right? That limiter is incredible. You guys should pick that up. It's really, really affordable too. Snare bus. All the snares are going here. They're getting, looks like they're filtered a little bit. And I think I'm probably just filtering them. Yeah, so I like to use the SSL for filters a lot. Which is funny because I should just use the other one that Waves has, like the G series EQ. And then the Oxford Inflator really gives me like some snap, pushes that mid-range, fattens it up a little bit. So I'll just play the snare. I'll play that without these plugins. So yeah, mixing is all about the art of just like push this a little bit further, push that a little bit further, give me a little bit more sub, give me a little bit more. And then once things start breaking up, you're like, ah, shit. It all collapsed. It's because you're trying to get to the finish line too soon, right? So a lot of the times, if you're not a mixing engineer, you don't do this for a living. Like, and I mean, you don't make your living doing this, truly. Like, you have a side job, you have a side gig, you make your living doing other things. Then you probably have a lot to learn, as I do, okay? Just like, let's put that out there. I'm learning every day. And I suggest if you get into music, you get into mixing, mastering, composing, producing, writing, engineering, in any sense, You better be learning every day, because you will be left in the dust. Some kid will come by. He'll be way better than you because he's learning every day. He's killing you on the new techniques, whether it's through FL Studio and he's flipping loops like crazy, or he's mixing and he's doing really cool mixing stuff and getting, louder records that are more exciting. I mean, which is highly doubted, because mixing is really more about like experience than anything else, especially mastering. But this is all about like learning every day, like finding something like, oh, how can I get just 0.005% better today at mixing my sonics? Like, guys, I'm serious. It's literally why we made a vocal mixing masterclass. We made a beat mixing masterclass, and we charge barely anything for them, because I understand the importance of people improving. You got to learn every day, and you learn from everyone in this game. Don't think that you're not going to learn something from someone that's been mixing records for 15 to 20 years. Like, you will learn something, and it'll improve your skills by some sort of percentage. And that's the game that we play. We play the game of like, if I can learn and get a little bit better today, just incremental every single day, it's the same way I look at my mixes. Can I get a little bit louder on that snare? Can I get a little bit more in your face with that vocal? Can I get a little bit more dynamic, right? Little bit punchier, right? So that's this game. It takes a lot of concentration. It's very small steps, and you're just biting away, And when you're an amateur, you do this. You're like, quah, 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 I'm done. It's mixed. And then you get better, and you go, quah, 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 I'm done. It's mixed. And then you get really good, and you're going, you're making like a million, billion little tiny moves. It's like tweak the fader just a little bit, and then I push a little bit into that. And it has a lot to do with gain staging, and it's understanding the plugins and hearing their sweet spot and knowing when they're going to break. And you got to push them to the point where they break, and then you got to pull it back. And that's what it is. So that's what these plugins are. That's what they're doing. Okay, snare bus 6050, again, using as a gate. Snare top, we're doing the same thing. We already went over the snares. And then the snare snap, which is a parallel. This is a parallel process, giving myself a little bit more attack. You got to, It's like you have to do it for years. Yeah, you have to do it for years, chase the connect. You have to do it for years. And you have to do it for hours every day. Like literally every single day, you got to be doing this stuff. If you want to be a producer or a composer or an engineer, mixing engineer, mastering engineer in the music industry and make a living, come on. Just like treat it like Mark Cuban says, right? Like someone's sitting around spending 24/7 trying to take your job. They're trying to take your business from you. They're trying to take everything from you. Work like that. Work like someone's, like you got, there teams of people trying to take everything away from you. That's how you got to do it. That's the kind of dedication, this career path. And you got to be obsessed with this shit. If you're not, don't even get into it. I mean, do it as a hobby, because it's probably a pretty fun hobby, but it's going to be expensive. All right, so all drums. Toms. Okay, so toms were like, I didn't replace these toms, which I usually definitely replace toms. But I just filtered everything down like under the boomy area. And then I gave it some Maserati drum, which I said I only use on the snare, but lo and behold, I don't know. Toms. Snap, that's probably what they needed to cut through the mix. And then I think I probably did that on all the toms. And you can see there's like room mic toms in here as well. So they actually, I think, recorded the toms separately from everything, which is really cool. I mean, they're legendary players, by the way. These guys are really smart. They recorded this really well. So, like, let's listen to these. Just show you what these sound like. Just great, right? Glued, sound exactly like the record. It's just awesome. They crush that. So yeah, the overheads, it looks like what I was doing is like I'm dipping out a little bit of this 484, which I think I probably should have dipped more out because that's kind of that boxy area I'm really not liking. And I used the overhead Maserati stuff here, pushed a little treble into them, probably because I was looking for that edge there. And then the Sheps 73, which looks like I'm taking, yeah, I'm cutting a little bit on the highs, and that's it. And then it looks like the filter's on as well at 50, and so it's going past everything past 50 is going through. And then these rooms, yeah, just same thing. I'm kind of just like pushing, like shaping everything as I go into the next stage, right? So these room mics were really important to everything. Looks like they were all kind of like, you know, different. This 87 especially is just like crushed. So yeah, you can even hear headphone bleed from the drummer in that room mic because it's so smashed, right? And then there was an extra room mic here. I turned it off. I probably was like, nah, it's too much. You guys went a little crazy. That happens a lot too. Like, don't be afraid to record a lot more mics than you think might even be used, right? Then the tambourine. Everyone needs a tambourine and some rock and roll. Just everything below there, dipped out a little bit more of that like kind of nasally area of the tambourine, which can actually be pretty piercing. It can actually hurt your ears, like anywhere from like, say like 700 to like 3K on a tambourine. It's just like shang, shang, shang. It's like knocking your head off. And then a CLA 2A, just probably to control it. And then the bass. This is a really, really important part of this track. So let's listen to the bass. Let's really like dial in this bass tone, because look at this. I mean, like, really look at what I'm doing here. There's a lot of stuff. And it looks like I was pretty obsessed with getting rid of that bottom junk, right? So dynamics, I do this a lot. I use a multiband. I use this on 808s like crazy, the Ozone, or any multiband. If you got a multiband compressor, C6, C4 by Waves, Fab Filter makes one. Everyone makes a multiband. Come on, guys. So Ozone, I just think this one's really clean. It's also really easy to hear. Like, you could just hear you can hear it working. So here I just like limiting this at -3.8. I'm probably taking some off, but let's really listen to this, and I'll show you the plugins and kind of bypass stuff, because the bass tone was really important to this record. First of all, let's just like point out how much better it sounds with the processing, right? Without the processing, it just kind of sounds puny, like I'm bored. I'm just doing the bass part, right? It's just like a DI'd bass, it sounds like to me. So it's just kind of boring. I wanted it to sound more aggressive, more in your face. I need to hear it. I need to hear the points. Here I'm pushing this top a little bit, so you can see it gets a little bit more spitty on the 2K. I do that a lot on bass. JJP bass is incredible. I use this like crazy. Jack Joseph Puig, like, come on, man. Damn legend, right? So going a little sensitive, compress, highs. I'm pushing highs like crazy. I'll just show you this A and B. It's insane. Now listen to it in the mix and you're like, dude, where's the bass, right? It's just not there. Like, it's not full, it's not thick, it's not loud enough. It's not all sorts of stuff, right? So I had to really get that bass to really glue and feel mean and feel like it's holding the groove down, man. Like, that's what it is. It's the backbone of the record. Same thing with an 808 and trap records, or, you know, sub bass in an R&B record, whatever, right? So that's what I'm doing. I want you to hear it. So I'm spending a lot of time like get that mid-range pushing, the highs pushing, compress it, get the lows going. There's this edge thing. This is awesome on this plugin. And then I go into max bass to give you some harmonics, right? So let's listen to this max bass going in and out.
What was my ass off for a better life? You
So you guys like kind of see how I'm like shaping things to feed it to the limiter. Okay. Now when I turn this L2007 on, you're going to go, oh, there's the tone. I see what you were doing. Right? Because like you start adding stuff and I always mix like this is one thing. Right? I got an EQ, I got a JJP bass, I got a max bass, I got an Ozone 8, I got an L2007, I got a Lin EQ low band. I'm mixing like these are all one unit. It's like one console right in front of me that I'm like pushing the bass into. And I'm like, oh, I gotta compress with that and do that. And then I'm gonna feed it to this limiter. Now let's get the gain going. Okay, now it's a little too fat. Okay, let's go back to that max bass and let's tweak that a little bit, right? Smooth it out. That's it. Just to feed each other. That's what we're doing here. All right, and then when I pop this in and out, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, there's the bass. Super important that that kick drum and this bass are gluing, right? So if you really listen, they're glued like so good. And that's the plan. And that's why I sweep out everything down here and why I'm so obsessed with getting rid of that voltage, because I want the bass to be defined and punchy and full and thick and aggressive, but I also want it to be pillowed and I want it to be glued to the kick drum. The kick drum's got to punch right through, right? They got to work together really well. They got to be married. They got to be in holy matrimony. That's what it's about. And then, you know, that's it. And then you just mix that large fader in and you go, that's where I want it right there. And that's it, really. It's like, that's how you get that bass tone going, you know? You gotta push the mid-range, you gotta shape it, you gotta max bass it. I'm like, you know, I'm like adding harmonics, thickening it out, but then I'm taking it down in volume, right? And then I'm going to feed it this, which is then going to compress things differently, right? Like you could see the high stuff really starts to get compressed really hard, while this is open, more open for the low. And then as I hit this limiter, that's what I'm doing, is I'm kind of like bringing these all back together, right? I'm just shaping. I continually like take the clay and just move it around. And I always think of a limiter as kind of like, okay, whatever you're shaping into it, it's going to take all that shape and it's going to flatten it down, and then it's going to bring that up, right? So I have to give it the shape that I want, and then sometimes I'll go back and tweak as I'm bringing that limiter back, right? Because you can see here, it's I don't know. Let's see the gain reduction here. You know, it's just gluing it. It's just shaping it and going, okay, that's what we want. It's at loud and normal on the release, okay? So that's it. And then sometimes I use linear EQ for, you know, just make sure I don't get any weird phase stuff in the bottom. But sometimes that causes pre-ringing, like in a kick drum or something that's transient, you know. All right, and then the guitars. Wow, this should be a whole nother video, but I'm gonna kind of fly through these because I'm running out of time here. Hopefully you guys are liking this. Smash some like buttons. Show me some love, please. I'll keep making these videos for you guys as long as you show up. All right? And you got to show love. Stop showing love, I'm going to stop showing up. But here it is, 628, dipped it out. Guitars, a lot of the times I find that area kind of gets a little too much. It's a little too much for me. 8K I'm pushing, probably to give you some spank on the guitar lead. Here we go, Maserati again. I must have been really on this Maserati thing at this time. I don't know. A little heavy action going on. Let's just hear these in and out. The Pultec, I love the Pultec. I would have probably chose the UAD version, but probably back in the days, I wasn't even using it. So this is a good one. I like this one still. The Waves Pultec is good. Poigtec, if you will. All right, so let's put these in and out on the guitars. And just pay attention to the guitars. The guitars are so... They're the key element in this track. Guitars are, like, so important in rock music. It's unbelievable. It's like the 808. You know, it's the 808 of trap.
Of the night, I bust my ass off for a better life. You ain't got 1 ounce of what I got. Now I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want a shot at the title. I want the rims and bows. I want a shot at the title.
They just kind of stand up, they pop out, they like they're just, there you go. There it is. And I didn't even bypass the Fatso. The Fatso is probably doing a lot of work too. So guitar lead bus, you can see all these leads are going to it. And these leads, let's listen to these. It's a 57, 421, and a 451 on a cab. So yeah, really cleaning them up, cleaning up that like that rumble and like weirdness going on, which would literally ill-define the bass, the kick drum, and anything else in the low end. So you got to be really careful with that stuff with guitars, because a lot of people will take too much out, and then all of a sudden the guitars sound like they're like really stingy and kind of like in your face, and they just don't sound good. You still want guitar tone to be thick, right? And this is a key thing, like using multiple different mics. You can see here I'm just panned out 86, 86, and then 0 up the middle on the 451. Probably the 451 had more like the mid-range that I was looking for. Maybe it was, you know, like 451 is a pretty balanced mic. It's pretty even frequency spectrum. And then 421 is probably a little bit more low end. It's going to have a lot more low mids. And then the 57, of course, is like all mid-range, right? Just pushes the mids forward. So that's kind of the technique I'm using. I'm kind of like cleaning up all this bullshit here, getting rid of the rumble stuff. And then Maserati is probably doing a lot of the same, right? So we're doing a little tame, which is probably just compression. And then in sensitivity, that looks like it's probably just like doing like a reamp kind of vibe. So it's probably pushing more mids forward, things like that. So guitars are super important. You got to get the tone right, or you're gonna fail at mixing rock for the rest of your life. You'll always be a failure, and your parents will probably disown you. So just you know, just that little nugget in there. All you guys that have watched for like an hour now you know how to not get disowned by your parents. Pay attention to the guitars. All right, and then the riff guitar, super important. And a really fun EQ that I use on this. The Helios is an amazing guitar EQ. I love it. It's incredible. I'm typically pushing like some mid-range, or I'm like cutting out some stuff with it, but it's awesome on guitars, especially electric. All right, so let's listen to this riff guitar. Let's kind of bypass this stuff in and out. really other important part of this is it's going to a Devil Lock, Soundtoys Devil Lock, probably for some tone, and then a slap. So let's bypass everything and hear what this riff guitar came to me as. So you see a lot of guitar players, and Philip, you're in here still, right? A lot of guitar players, they get tricked into thinking that their guitar sounds just incredible and the tone's perfect, right? But then it gets to a mixing engineer and we're like, that's all you got, dude? The hell's that shit? We want it to be thicker. We want it to be more aggressive. We want it to have more bite. We want it to be more exciting. We want it to be more dimensional. We want it to have more distortion. We want more colors. You know, we want things to pop out of the speakers. You may be like in the recording session, and this is what I would want. Like, someone records this guitar and gives it to me as a mixing engineer. I'm like, thank you so much. Can I pay you, right? Because you saved my life. Now all I'm thinking is like, how do I just improve this thing and make it really pop, right? A lot of the times you get guitars that are recorded like, this is hell. I got to make the tone, right? I got to sit here and really make a tone for this thing. But these guys recorded well because they're masters at their craft. Great guitar players getting great tone, and then I get to put the extra sauce on there. I need to like take what it is and make it work in the mix where it's exciting in an exciting mix. So guitars, again, don't get disowned by your parents. Really spend time on the guitars. And this is all it is. Devil Lock, slap, some BX Digital, cleaning up the low mids, probably just trying to make it cut through a little bit more. Maserati, Helios, this is an amazing EQ. And then this parallel stuff. Let's show you what that is. Devil Lock and the slap. See, I'm giving you guys all the sauce. I can't believe I like get on here and show you guys exactly what I'm doing. Like all this. Here's all the plugins I'm using. Here's what I did to do this. Y'all got to show some love for real. This is all free too, by the way. Free on my Saturday night. I'm just showing you guys all the keys. All the keys to rock success, to become a rock mixing god. All right, so Devil Lock. Let's get into it. Awesome. Okay, just crushing a little bit, crunching a little bit. No darkness, mixed in 100%, fast on the release. Just gonna give me some love, dude. Incredible. Thank you, Devil Lock. Thank you, Soundtoys. You guys kick ass. Amazing. I love Soundtoys plugins. If you guys don't have Soundtoys plugins and you're trying to become a mixing engineer, I wouldn't say go get them unless y'all are like really going to be mixing engineers and make a living, you know, but it's so awesome. Love their plugins. All right, and then this slap. I really like this slap. I thought this was really cool. You know, I design all my sounds because I'm a freak and I love doing it. But, okay, so EQ, just kind of like get rid of the top, get rid of the bottom. And then the BBD delay. This is just built into Pro Tools, into Slow Tools. BBD delay is amazing. I'm just giving it some slap. You can see 122 milliseconds. The sync is off. I probably just like eared this and got some dimension with it. Let me kind of show you what that's doing because it's pretty cool. Man, mixing is so subtle, but like that is like something you just feel, right? It's like the guitar goes from like this like really dry thing sitting right in front of you at a guitar cab to like, oh, it's got a world behind it, and it's got some life and it's breath, you know, like the slap is what does that. So this is a very short delay. That's all it is. But this is a great plugin, and it's free. It's built into Pro Tools, so you really can't beat that. Awesome delay. I use it on a lot of stuff. Okay, so riff guitar, that's it. That's the guitar chug. Okay, so there's these like really dope big guitars that come in. Like, listen to this shit right here. This is where the sauce is. Just imagine this track without those guitars. It'd be like, this is pretty cool. It's a cool song. Didn't really do it for me though. You know, like maybe you should add some guitars for that chorus. Right? Those guitars that come in, it just like changes the game. Right? It's like all of a sudden things get wide. That was what I was going for. Like, I need things to be like wide, and a whole new dimension of guitars come through. Like you go from this kind of like in your face, kind of, you know, right there, everything's there, to like, whoa, a whole new world. And that's the idea. Like incredible, just thick, beautiful, just it's everything you want. So 670 UAD, love it. It's gonna thicken it out. It's got tubes in it, tons of tubes, right? Thick, crunchy, beautiful, pushes the mids. Shep 73, again, we're using the Sheps. Pushing 3.2, so I'm pushing that mid range, which is gonna give me that like really kind of growl in your face kind of vibe. And then I'm sweeping everything 50 and below. And then, bam, secret sauce right here. So let's play these guitars. Let's solo them up. And let's play these guitars with these plugins and kind of show you what they're doing. Because this is like, man, I hope you guys are taking notes. I hope you really understand what I'm doing here. Like, you got to really understand, like, these accents, all this stuff that's, like, going into this. So much. So much arrangement. And then I got an accent bus, right? So the accent bus has a bunch of stuff. So let's just like listen to these chugs with and without these plugins and show you kind of what the color of these plugins and like what they can do. It's incredible that you have these like on your computer now. Okay, so a really important part to understand distortion, right, is that you can think about distortion as like shading when you're drawing, right? So you can do like dark shading, and then you can do lighter shading, and you can do different like different charcoals, and like you could do gray colors, like more white gray. You could do black shading. You could do different shading, and that can like fill in the other shading, right? So with distortion, we're like looking at like say this is like a tube, and like here's the fundamental frequency, and then you add the tube compressor and it does this, right? And it's really more like that. And then if my fingers like went like that, hopefully this is making sense. So it's like this, right? Bam. And then you got like all these different like extra harmonics from that fundamental. Okay. Now, you got it from the guitar cab, and you got it from the microphones and the way the microphones are picking up the guitar cab. And it sounds cool. It's crunchy and stuff, right? But then what if you added like extra shades in, right? So like you had the fundamental, then you added the shades of everything that was already there, and then you started adding these other shades in between. That's how you get a thick sound. It's through distortion, no matter what. Okay? That's what it is. It's harmonics. And harmonics come from distortion. And distortion is not necessarily, it's not like a crunchy, distorted guitar. Distortion is in everything. They call it saturation, if you want to call it saturation, but it's going to make your transients come to life. It's going to make your 808s come to life. It's going to make your vocal come to life and be thicker. It's going to fill out your vocal in the center. It's going to make things more exciting. It gets our ear excited. We like harmonic distortion. We want to hear distortion. We don't want to hear a sine wave. We want to hear a saw wave with a bunch of different harmonics on it, right? It's really important to understand the physics of this, the theories behind it. But truly, that's about it for the whole thing. I am the last thing I'm going to kind of get into, I'll just show you guys briefly, which is obviously a really important part of the track, but I'm just like running out of time, and I don't think a whole lot of people are going to want to watch an hour and 20-minute video of this stuff. But the vocals. So the P606 is, again, McDSP, love it. Pushing some body there, pushing the 1K to get it to stand and be in the center. And then the VMR, I used to use this like crazy. I used to love this FG stress on vocals. If you want vocals to be spitty, this is the one, right? This is a distressor, basically. And then I'm pushing a little top in there. Again, we're looking at Neve, so get a little top in, spit. And then this looks like it's at 987. I'm pushing that forward. And then I'm just filtering out everything at 37. So let's listen to this with the distortion in and out. Sorry, compression in and out. I'm all in the distortion realm now.
You've got the world, you've got the lights shining down on you, king of the night. What puts my ass off for a better life? You ain't got 1 ounce of what I got, no, I want my piece of pie. He's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want a shot at the title, I want the rips and bows, I want a shot at the title, I want it all, yeah. Oh, I've heard it all said before, you probably never make it through that door. It's just your luck you made it this far. Well, let me bleed, let me fight, I knock you down, uppercut, left, right, in time to be home for supper. Well, he's looking at you, he's looking at me. I want a shot at the title, I want the rips and bows, I want a shot at the title, I want it all, yeah.
So hopefully that all makes sense, right? So it's basically that I'm EQing, to get the vocal to really stand out and be up front, because this vocal needs to be up front, needs to be a standout vocal. And you can't lose it when the guitars come in and everything starts taking over those mids and stuff. You have to keep it. It has to be, this is the compression, it's the EQ, it's pushing this 1K, it's pushing this body. It's all this stuff working in conjunction. The vocal verb here is basically sweep out the top and the bottom, and then I go to an EMT 140 plate, and that's just set on A, and nothing special here, just 100% wet on A. Looks like we're a little bit over a second on the decay, and that's it. Plate A is selected. And then the Neve, we've already we've talked about the vocal parallel compression. I'll show you how much this is compressing, though, by the way, so you guys can really dial in on how you get that vocal to really be up front, because that's the most important thing. You want it to be like popping in your face. Get that thing popping. Okay, let me get back to my window here.
He's looking at you, he's looking at hey, hey, hey. I knock you down like the wind blows. I knock you down like the wind blows. He's looking at you, he's looking at me.
So yeah, there's a lot of compression going on, right? But it's all parallel, so it's not like the vocal sounds overly compressed. It just sounds like energetic. It sounds more, yeah, let's go, and that's kind of like what compression, I use compression for a lot, is to give it immediacy, okay? So like you want to attack pretty fast on a vocal compressor, because if you think about a vocal, you got to think like, you're not really going da, da, da. You're not going pow, pow, pow. You're really going like, or you're going, yeah, roll it to homies a better, but like, it's not a whole lot of transient information that you're trying to protect. So you can attack really fast on a compressor. And that's why I use fast compressors, like distressors, the R comp. Like if I put an R comp on here, I would have it pretty fast. If I put anything on here, I'd have a fast compressor on a vocal. So don't let your vocal let it come through a compressor that's going to be slow. That's why 1176s and LA2As work so well on vocals. It's because they're really fast. They're fast attack compressors. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully this was like really useful. Last thing is there's a Vox Verb here. I use this Abbey Road plate sometimes. I don't think I was actually using it on this. And then this fattening, which is basically a doubler, Q4 to give me some like mid-range, get rid of the bottom and stuff. And this kind of thickens out the middle of the vocal. And then S1 imager that spreads it. So I can kind of blend that. There's a lot of parallel stuff. You should be shaping your stuff with parallel all the time. But that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for showing up. If you do want any beat mixing, vocal mixing masterclass, I left a link in the description. And also, if you're not part of the Beat Gang, like, you got to ask yourself, why am I not part of it? Like, there's no reason, if you're trying to build your music industry, your music business, and you want to make money doing music, and you want to connect with people and network with people and learn stuff, and tomorrow we're getting on a Zoom call and we're going to do a Q&A with the group, right? And it's just basically everybody like learning and about, everything from building your business and music to producing, to mixing and mastering, to getting your sonics right, to arrangement, to all sorts of stuff. And we're doing live sync briefs every week. Some of these guys, like they're on and off, they're writing and then they're not writing. But, this is what it takes. It takes consistency. It takes showing up. But it takes mentorship, consulting, and getting around people that are doing it, right? So I don't just get on YouTube and get paid for this. I don't get paid anything for doing YouTube. I get paid for music, right? And that's about it. Mixing, mastering, producing, composing, recording, engineering, writing songs. That's what I get paid for. That's how I make my living, my BMI checks, right? And I'm just trying to be out there helping a lot more people and help you get those BMI checks up, right? Get your ASCAP checks up. Get your music business up. Get your mixing skills up. Get your sonics up. Your recording up. Like, get you to a point where you can like really start to see, wow, I can actually make this a career. So join the Beat Gang. There's really no reason you shouldn't be a part of the Beat Gang. So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have the money. I don't have the money. It's like, I always ask them, like, if you gave someone $250 today and they were like, yo, I'm going to give you $2,500 in information by tomorrow and the next day, and I'm going to give you back that $250 like in a week, in a month's time. Like, of course I'm going to say, yeah, here you go. Here's $250. Stupid, right? So make investments. That's how the music industry works. Invest in you. Don't invest in plugins and new interfaces and microphones and speakers and think that that's going to get you anywhere very fast. That is the slowest way to grow your music industry. The fastest way is to connect with people. That's it. Pay for the knowledge, pay for the access. But I would say always pay for access before you pay for knowledge, right? So you want to get access to people. You want to be on the phone with them. You want to be in Zoom calls with them. You want to be in a group with them, in a private group where you get their attention. You can ask them questions. You can build your business. They can listen to your music, etc. Give you feedback one-on-one time, and you can scale, and you can avoid all the stupid shit that you're going to do in the first 5-10 years of your music career. That's it. That's my pitch. Love you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Happy Saturday. Go enjoy yourself. Go have a beer for me or something. All right. I'll see you again. We'll do another one of these. I'm going to try to keep them on Saturdays. Saturday sessions out.